So the Rebbe in Ois Beis, the Rebbe continues. He says that we have to be like a korban. This is based on the Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe Tafshin Yud in Basi Legani. He says we have to be like a korban. What's the idea of being like a korban? A korban, first you have to inspect that it doesn't have any mum, that it doesn't have any defects. That's when it's kosher for a korban. And then you have to shecht it. That's the basic idea. What does it mean in the service of Hashem? Which the korbanos is part of service of Hashem b'chlal, especially everything, but especially the korban is an avodah ruchnis. He says, what's the meaning? It means that a person needs to inspect themselves to make sure that he is, not defective, without blemishes, and that uh, making sure that you should really know yourself. And you should know yourself means honestly, not to try to trick yourself, and to make a good cheshbon about who you really are. And and then only then there you go to the shechting. What does the shechting mean? Shechting means that the behemoth is still there, but it doesn't have any more life. So the Rebbe explains what it means in Avodas Hashem, that while the behemoth is still there, your guf, your nefesh habahamis is there, but the chayis that they have in Gashmius, you have to take out from them. So that what should be remain should be only the Ruchnius, the Avodas Hashem, b'chol drachechadeyu mitzvahs. Ois base. Omnom, however, kasher yizboinen b'mamodeyu matzovei. When a person will reflect his standing, his situation, where he really stands. And the Rebbe adds, v'adaita denafshe, kinisker le'il, and on his own, meaning not to impress anybody, not to try to just go through the motions. Adaita denafshe means that he's really on his own going to make sure this is something which is important to me. It's important to my nefesh. It's important to my soul. Kinal, as we said earlier. Hine lifomim rabbis. So the Rebbe says, so what will happen many times when you reflect? Yira, you will see v'yivachach or v'yochach, and you will be proven the gam afilu im ka'es einoi bal aveda. Even if presently he is not a bal aveda, he's not doing avedas presently, but mikol mokoim, nevertheless, hine v'chatosi negdi somid. Still, my sins, as the pasuk says, are always opposite me. I see them; they're all the time. My sin is all the time, which means the sins that you've done in the past are still here in the present. The chatois of sha'osa b'meshach yimei chaldei, the sins that he has done during the time of his existence. Ubahem, and amongst those sins, gam elu sha'osa koidem bar mitzvah, also those that he has done before he's even bar mitzvah. I mean, this is a big chiddush here, because if he done them before bar mitzvah, he's not yet responsible for them. But still, the sin, the blemish, even he did it before the mitzvah, kamesha kosuf chak admur hamtzoi. This is written by the Mittler Rebbe. The Mittler Rebbe says that kayomim heim, they still exist. Kiloi tiken oisam adayin, because he has not corrected them. Einochinami, when you're a minor, you're not responsible, but you need to connect those sins after bar mitzvah. But you have proof that you haven't yet, your sins are still there. How is the proof? How do we know? And a clear evidence clear proof that he did not fix them. Ki im hoya oisa tshuva kidiboyi, had he done tshuva properly, so then loizu bilvad. If you've done real tshuva, so then not just this alone, that you wouldn't have the idea of one sin dragging another sin, because if you don't have any avedis, then it wouldn't drag you to do other things, because you are in a situation where aveda gereres aveda, you're still dragged to other avedas. But if you did tshuva, then you would not just not be aveda gereres aveda, but you would be on a very high level. El adrabe. But on the contrary, mitzad shenase bal tshuva, because you become a bal tshuva, hine avedose mikanu lahaba hoisa tzricha liyes bechelo yatir. So your service from here and on, from the time you did tshuva, should have been with more force, mikifi shehoya ad ata, than it was till now. Your service, because now you're about tshuva. If you really did tshuva, so then your teshuva, you should have been serving the Eibishter with more force than what you served till then. Why would you serve more force? The fact that you war before in a parched land, you war in the shadow of the death, you war in a dark place, that would have aroused by you a greater yearning for godliness. If you really did teshuva, then you should have been awakened, aroused more than before. But what is the reality? But when he reflects in his standing, in his condition, ha'amiti, his true condition. Now he says, "Mibli lahokel la'atzmai," not making it lenient for yourself. Umibli lahatis es atzmai klal v'ikra, not to cheat yourself, to trick yourself at all. And the main, in other words, a real honest accounting without making excuses, leniencies, or tricking yourself at all. He feels in his soul totally opposite of this. It's totally opposite. He doesn't feel that he's stronger and that he's more like he's serving the Eibishter like a Baal Tshuva, but he feels himself that he became even thicker, more grub in the way, more serious sins. What he feels in himself? Just the opposite, legabri, total opposite. Not just this alone, that his standing and condition that was before did not bring him to the level of great love, in which this in which the intentional sins become like merits. Not only did it not accomplish that, but on the contrary, his previous Averis, Zegoram loy, this caused him, and has brought him, it brought him that he became thick and coarse, obvious vegasus, ad shehu betzir da aveda geredes aveda, until he is in the form of one sin causes another sin. So what is this all telling? This all tells the person who is honest with himself and wants to make a real cheshbon. This tells him, from this is all clear evidence that by him, when he says my sin is always in front of me, sometimes even when you do tshuva, it's in front of you, but it's eine be'ofen shekavar also tshuva nechaino. Sometimes, if you did proper tshuva, elo shelefi mamode umatzove ato, but according to his standing and condition now, ein maspik tshuva hakodemes. The previous tshuva isn't sufficient. V'tzorich ka'eis tshuva nailis b'yoser, and needs a elevated tshuva. This is like the Alter Rebbe writes in the Tanya, that v'chatosi negdi somid means that he's taka done tshuva, but the tshuva that he did in the past, right now, that's not a sufficient tshuva according to his level right now. But that's not the person's chatosi negdi somid. Ki'im, but rather his condition is to begin with, he has not at all fixed all of his matters. And they are like a blocking curtain that separate between him and his Father in heaven. And that interrupts and that prevents him, that holds him back from serving of the Eibishter. Because Chatosi Negdi Summit, because he still has those sins, as the Rebbe said, even from before Bar Mitzvah, and he has not at all done Teshuvah proper, because otherwise he would be not in a level of Aveda Goreres Aveda, but he would be in a level of Teshuvah, it would be in a higher level. But that's not the case. So what does this mean? Hine. So that means that that's the condition. Hine. When he reflects on all this, and he knows also how great the idea of korbanis. Korbanis meaning shehu kiruv hakoiches vehachushim, that is to bring the person's powers and his talents, to bring it to Hashem, to raise it up, ad shenichlal be'esh shalamaylo, until his powers and his chushim are included in the fire of above, because you bring the korban on the mizbeach. The fire on the mizbeach is the fire of above. The roza the kurbana oila ad roza de ein sof. The secret of the korban goes up all the way until the secret of the ein sof, ukamashi is bar, that we explained, meaning that it goes up into a very high madrege. So he sees his standing. He knows how great it is to be a korban and how high a korban brings in. Hinehu makshe la'atzmoi. So he asks himself a question. How can I possibly become a korban? How can I become a korban? How can I even begin to become a korban knowing his true condition? So he has a problem. Here we're telling him that you need to be a korban. So, and what kind of a connection does he have to the idea of korbanis? How would he be accepted as a korban to Hashem? V'hu ein boy mesoyim. He has no ein boy mesoyim. There's not one piece that is really positive. He's totally on a negative stance. So, so Hosir Hakusha, the Rebbe explains that the Friedrich Rebbe added to the words of the Alter Rebbe, Hosir Hakusha, in order to understand the question, the pasuk Ein Boi Mitzrayim comes from Eve when Hashem punished him, and of the pasuk says that there will be nothing over there. Nothing is whole, that's the person's. So what is the Friedrich Rebbe Moisiv Chveit Kedushas Meirich Ame Admur? The Friedrich Rebbe adds to it Al Pirush Chag Admur Hazokin, on top of the explanation of the Alter Rebbe B'Teves Mikem, on the word Mikem. The Alter Rebbe wrote the word Mikem means that you have to bring yourself. The Friedrich Rebbe adds V'Omer Mikem Hainu Mikem, from you, but then he adds the words Ubachem Hadover Tolu. It hangs on you. Das is abhängig von euch allein. This depends just on you alone, which means the Rebbe is saying, yes, it's up to you. It hinges on you. You can. Shemibli habet al mamodeu matzovei. Without paying attention, without looking on your standing in your situation. Ve'al kol masher over all of ato and everything that went over you till now. Sheyodeya nigei levove. He knows the plagues of his heart. Mikol mokoim, and yet bochem hadover tolu. It's still up to you. It's still up to you. At shekol echad ve'echad yochol leimer, till each and every one is able to say, Mosai yagiu maisai lemaise avoise Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. When will my actions reach the actions of my parents Avram Yitzchak Yaakov? Yes, even that level, every Yid can say, when will my level reach that level of Avram Yitzchak Yaakov? As the Tanot Velio Rava quoted from here there. V'zehu mikem korban lahavayim. This is what means mikem. Mikem from you means also bochem tolui hadover. It's up to you. Liyos korban lahavaya, to become korban lahavaya. Lihiskadev, to become close. Ulisached, and to unite im havaya. Korban lahavaya. This is a specific language when we say a korban that's to be to the Shem Havaya, not to the Shem Elikim. You have to get close, and it's up to you not only to get close like to the Shem Elikim, but even to the Shem Havaya. The korbanis heim lahavaya dafke. A korban is to Hashem. Coming closely, Skarev is with Havaya, with Yudke Vovke. Loy Elikim shubi gematria hateva. Not to Elikim. Elikim has the same numerical value as hateva. But no. Ki'im lahavaya dafke, specifically to the Shem Havaya. As the Zohar explains, al posik on the verse, Zoyveyach lelikim yocharam. So how does it teach the posik? Lelikim could mean for lavedazore in the pashto pshat in the posik. Yocharam should become cherem osur. But he says if the korban is only to the shem elikim, the Zohar says, then yocharam, then it's not a proper korban. Zoyveyach lelikim, it has to be lahavaya. She'inyan ha-korbonis u'lahavaya davke. The idea of korbonis is specifically to havaya. L'maylo m'shem elikim, higher than the shem elikim. Now, the Rebbe adds, not only lehavaya, but actually even higher than havaya. Because it says In this pasuk, it says lahavaya, but we say that the korban be'emes magia oid l'maylo yoser. In truth, it reaches even higher than havaya. It reaches lifnei havaya. We say before havaya, meaning, as the Alter Rebbe explains, in higher level havaya. The rozo, the kurbano, because the secret of the korban, the Rebbe quoted before, oila ad rozo de ein sof. This goes up till the secret of the Ein Sof, which means a carbon secret goes all the way up to Ein Sof, Shulemailo Game Havaya, which is also higher than the Shem Havaya. That's the Ein Sof in which the person's carbon is elevated, and where he comes close to is even higher than Havaya. The Shem Havaya, because why is Havaya not sufficient? Because Havaya is made up from the four letters Yud Kei Vav Kei, Tzimtzum, Hispashtus, Hamshocha, Hispashtus. But this is even higher than all of them. The Shem Havaya, Afshu Lamaylo Mishem Elikim, because even the name of Havaya, even though it's higher than the name of Elikim, Mikol Mokoim, but still Daled Eis Yosef Remzeis. The four letters hint al tzimtzum hispashtus hamshocha v'hispashtus. Tzimtzum, the yud is contraction. The hey, wide hispashtus, expansion. The vav hamshocha, and the next hey hispashtus. Was dos is a seder von hishtalshlus. That's an order of hishtalshlus. Aval ein soif, but the ein soif, which is the rosa the kurbano, is rosa the ein soif, hulamailo mehavaya. That's higher than havaya. Uleshom magia avodas hakorbanes, and over there the avodas hakorbanes reach to the place which is higher than ishtalshlus, to the ein sof, which is higher than havaya. So even though in this pasuk it says korban lavai, but then later on it says weiter, B'zehu shemesayim be'inyan ha'akrova. This is why he concludes when he talks about this offering, that it'll be l'ritzoynoi lifnei havayim, that it'll be l'rotzin even higher than havayim. The mekoidem loze oimer, prior to this he says korban lehavayim. That's the level higher than elikim, but the level of havayim. But in the end of the subject, after he delineates, he speaks the specifics of the behema, bakar, and tzoin, oimer, lifnei, havaya. Then you actually tells you that you reach even higher than havaya. Upirish chak admur hatzamach tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek explains, Lifnei Havaya Lemailo Mehavaya, that Lifnei Havaya means before, higher, above Havaya. And that's the level where the person's korban reaches. And what the Frierdiker Rebbe is saying is, Mikem Bachem Adovatoli, that notwithstanding your previous condition and that you were far away and you think and you have a question, how could you possibly become a korban? You could. Bachem, it's up to you. Mezahu inyan ha-karbonis, and this is the idea of the karbonis. Shaha avoida, and this is what the Maimer, back to the Maimer, says the karbonis, Shaha avoida, he loy rak benefesh alikis. That this service is not just with your soul, with your godly soul. Behema Bokar Vetzoin, we're talking about your goof, you're talking about your nefesh habahamis. Ki mina behema, mina bokar, mina tzoin. The various different type of animal is the behema, the cattle, the sheep. Shu nefesh habahamis, that's the nefesh habahamis. That's what we are elevating over here. Ubefrat, k'moy shahoyz b'mikdash, especially the way it was the Mikdash they took physical cattle, physical sheep, physical behemoth. That then the service of the karbonis was, you could do with a physical animal. Today we can only do it spiritually. We don't have the ability to bring, but in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, you could bring a korban behemoth gashmis mamash with an actual physical behemoth. Sha'al yidei zeh, through this, umagia lifnei havaya. Then you reach higher than havaya, rozo de Ein Sof, the secret of Ein Sof. So while the Rebbe explains a person may make a calculation that he is still stuck and he sees that he hasn't really done teshuva properly, and he still has the level of Aveda, Geredes Aveda, he's still tempted. He's not at all. If he did proper teshuva, he wouldn't be at that level at all. He wouldn't be, but he is not. So how could he even think about becoming a korban, doing the Avedis HaKorbanos? And that's why the Frierdiker Rebbe adds, it's not only mikem, but bochem. It's up to you that you have the ability to reach that level. And when you reach the level, you become a korban not only to Havaya, but even lifnei Havaya. Elikim, of course not, because the idea of a korban is Elikim Zavech, Elikim Yochram. It has to be Havaya. But even Havaya is not sufficient. You go lifnei Havaya as the end of the subject of the korbanis over there. It's lifnei Havayis, and you take along also the gashmis, also your nefesh abahamis, and certainly in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, it was literally nefesh abahamis. And the next part, the Rebbe was going to discuss the fact that you burn it in the fire of above. So what does it mean, the fire of above, in the fire of the nefesh alikis? And the Mizbeach was a fire that came down from above. But your nefesh abahamis, to put it on the fire, means to burn it in the fire of your nefesh alikis. Gimel. V'hinei b'hakorbonis, with the korbonis, v'chein b'kiru v'koiches v'achushim, both in physical korbonis and also in the spiritual aspect of bringing close your powers and your abilities, your talents. Harei hakorban hagashmi hoyo nichlal b'ha'esh shalamaylo. The physical korban would be included in the fire of above. Meaning there was a fire that came down and that was consumed over there. The same thing is by the avodah of each one. My father-in-law, the Rebbe, explains in the Maimer, that the korbanos need to be included in the fire of above. That's the sparkling fire of his godly soul. That's the fire of above, the sparkling fire that's in the godly soul of the person. The pasuk says, her sparks are sparks of fire. It is the flame of Yudke. The flame of Hashem, of Yudke, is the flame of your soul. That's the godly soul that has that Shalheves, that flame of Yudke. The shoyresh ha'ava shebenefesh ha'likis, the root of the love of your godly soul, hu ma'esh shalamaylo, that comes from that fire of above, Shalheves Yudke. That is the flame of Yudke. That is the flame, the sparks of the fire of your nefesh alikis. B'lochein, gam ha'avo shebenefesh alikis b'yoysa lamato. Also, the love of the godly soul, when it is here below, nikras eish shelamaylo. It's still called the fire of above. The neshama's root has its spark from above, but we call this flame that the nefesh elokis that it has, we call it the eish shelamaylo, the eish of above. Ubiur hadivarim mashekoyre ha'aba ha'elyoina u'de nefesh ha'elokis shalheves yudke. To explain this idea that this supreme love and the love of the godly soul, we call it the flame of Yudke. Why are we calling it the flame? Ashalheves Yudke. Isa b'Sefer Yitzira. We find in the Sefer Yitzira the Ha'eser Sefiris Heim Kishalheves Kishura Begacheles. But there it's brought down in the Sefer Yitzira that the 10 spheres, Chabad, Chagas, Nehim, are like a flame which is tied to the coal. Umefaret Kvet Kedushas Admur Maharash. So the Rebbe Maharash details, what does that mean? Sheyesh Bazeh Beis Inyonim, there are two ideas over here. You have Shalheves Shebetoich Hagacheles. You have the flame that is inside of the coal, and you have Vishalheves Shal Gabe Hagacheles, and you have the flame which is on top of the coal. Vihine. So, what is the difference between the two flames? The flame that is within the coal and the flame that's on top of the coal. V'nei hashalheves she'al hagacheles yechoila liyos gam kein b'fnei atzmo. It can exist by itself. That flame, which is on top of the gacheles, that can have independently exist. Elo she'ein bo mitzias umamoshus. It's just a fire. There's no substance there. There's no real entity there. It's just a fire. That's what the halacha is. The Mishnah says, the hamoitzi hashalheves potter. If a person carries out hashalheves is potter, which means on Shabbos, if you carry out from the Reshus HaYochid to the Reshus HaRabim an item, you'll be chayiv. You violated Shabbos. But if you carry just a flame, you're potter. What? Why? The Mezayodim Beis Hoinyonim. So from this we know these two matters. Sheyeshno l'shalheves b'fnei atzmo. That there is an existence of a flame being by itself, because the Mishnah is talking about taking out just a flame. You're not taking the gachela. So we know that it's possible to just take a flame by itself. That's what we can deal with, a situation of taking out a flame. But we also know that the flame has no existence, no substance. That's why one who brings out the shalheves is exempt. Basically, the Rebbe is proving that the shalheves, which is on top of the gacheles, it is on its own, but it does not have an entity and the substance, as the law of the Mishnah carrying out on Shabbos hashalheves. So you see your potter. So you see there is such a thing as hashalheves by itself, but it's a non-mitzias. That's the shalheves which is on top of the gachelos. V'hinei koydem shenifra ha'olam, before world was created. Now we say koydem shenifra ha'olam shekoylo bazeh that includes in it, when we say before the world was created, usually when we talk about Bria, we say it's called Nivra. Bria has been created, but when we say Achele Nivra Ha'olam, before the world, it doesn't mean only before Bria, it means also before Atzilus. Shekoilel bazeh gam Acheloi Netzal. Included in this is also before there was Atzilus, before the separation of Atzilus, for Atzilus. Kidi Isa b'Sifrei HaKabbalah, as we find in the books of the Kabbalah. Hoyo hu ushmai bilvad. Over there, it was just Hashem and His name alone. That was before separation of bringing about Atzilus. And then the spheres separated. The base in Yonim Elu. So there's two steps. We have the spheres the way they were lechatchila before, when it was Hashem Hu Shmoi Echad, and then the way it was Netzal. The base in Yonim Elu. These two aspects. Eser spheres hagnuzon b'matzilon. The 10 spheres as they're hidden in the one who separates them. The Eser spheres v'zeinen netzel geworden. And then the 10 spheres as they've been already separated. Hem bedugmas beis ha'inyonim shebishalheves. They're similar to the two aspects in the flame. The shalheves shebetoich hagacheles. The shalheves, which is inside of the coal, even though it's more forceful, it's a stronger fire. But as the flame is inside of the kacheles and the coal, there's no entity of a flame there. It's all gacheles. And of course, it doesn't have the details of the flame. There's no entity of the flame, and certainly no specifics of the flame, which means the ein nikar shom mitziuso. Over there, you can't tell at all that there is a mitzias of a flame. Ki himrak mitzias hagacheles. In the gacheles, it's only the entity of the gacheles. So, if it's not mitzias there, how do we know that it's there? Elo sheyeshnom rayis v'choches. We have evidence. We have proofs. Sheyeshno shalheves gam b'tech hagacheles. That we know that there has to be also, there exists a flame in the gacheles. V'adarabah hi b'tekif yeser, and it's stronger. If there is a gacheles outside, of course it must be inside. But what do you see inside the gacheles? Hurak gacheles. It's not the gacheles. That's a mashal for the 10 spheres that are hidden before they came into Atzilus. Came, and likewise, is and even more than this. Hu bechlolus inyan eser spheres hagnuzir b'matzilom is in generally the idea of the 10 spheres as they're hidden in the matzilam, in the where they were separated from. The masha yesh nashom. What really is there is not spheres. Suraka maitzel is only maitzel. There's no spheres there. Elo sheyesh namarayis. But we have proof. Me'inyan eser spheres hanetzolis. The fact there is the 10 spheres that have been separated. Atzilus, we have the 10 spheres. So we have evidence there has to be sheyeshnan eser spheres hagnuzis b'matzilam, that there has to be 10 spheres hagnuzis b'matzilam. That is like the mashal of the flame in the gacheles, which is not an entity of spheres. It's not even there. We have only proof that it's there, because if it's on the outside, it has to be in the inside. But that is like the shalheves in the gacheles. But then, then the 10 spheres have been netzel, separated. Avogam la'achar atzilusam. But even after they've been separated, kshurim heim b'mekoidam, they are still tied to their source. Hainu eser sviras agnusus. They're still tied to the 10 hidden sviras, even though now they're in the open. Ukemoi shalheves sha'al hagacheles, just like the flame which is on top of the coal, shehi keshura b'hashalheves shebetech hagacheles. It's tied to the flame which is inside the coal. The flame that's on top is tied to the inside. V'zehu kol kiyura. And that's the way it's sustained. The flame could not be without the gachelas. If she should separate, become separated from her source, she'll be nothing and zero. As wird gornisht, it remains nothing. So this Rebbe is bringing out to explain what is the idea of shalheves. Bezehu shalheves yudke. We're saying that the neshama has this flame of yudke. The kamoi hashalheves asher yeshna kamoi shehi begacheles. Just as the flame, there is as it's in the coal. Bagachal kamoi shehi al hagacheles ukshurabai, and the way it is on top of the coal and tied to it. V'shalheves shal hagacheles, and the shalheves which is on top of the gacheles. Hari yichoy leliyis kam kein b'fnei atzmo b'firud. It can also be on its own, separated k'moy kein hugam. So it can be on the gacheles and tied to it, and the shalheves that is on top of the gacheles can be on its own, separated. Same thing is when we come to the order of Ishtalshlus. The Eser Spheres Hagaluyas, the revealed Eser Spheres, Af Shehem Kshurim B'Mekoidem, even though they are tied to their source, the Iu V'Chayoy Yichad, Iu V'Garmoy Yichad. There we say that Hashem and the Chayes, the Oiris and the Kelim of Atzilus is one, which means that they're tied always to their mokken. Dugmas hashalheves shala gacheles, similar to the flame which is on top of the gacheles. She'idover echad im hashalheves shebetoich gacheles, which is one with the flame inside the coal, which is one with the gacheles. Mikol mokoim hine mitzad the ribui hahishtalshelus efsher liya seif seif, because of the so many evolutions. So in the end, can be nisinas mokim l'toes alpirud. It can give room for a mistaken separation. Meaning, the esses are connected, but you could separate them, just like he said before from the Mishnah, that moitzi shalheves, you can separate it. Yes, it becomes ayin ve'efes, but you separate them. So there is an entity, which means it allows for something else down the line through the Hishtalshelus. While it is in Atzilus, it's connected, like the Gacheles, the Shalheves, which is tied to the Gacheles, and the Shalheves is tied to the Shalheves in the Gacheles, and everything is with the Gacheles. But then later on, eventually from this can come mistake. As the sages tell us, the Eibishter was telling Moshe Rabbeinu to say, Nasa Odom, let us make in a plural. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, how could we say, let us make, as if there's other, as a shituv b'maisa anybody else participating in creating of man? So he says, how could we write that? The Eibishter said, Ksoiv, you write. Somebody wants to make a mistake and he wants to think that there's other, let him make a mistake. So the Eibishter allows for that. As der Eibishter sagt, v'horeitze litos al yidei haksiva yita, that one who wants to make a mistake, by you writing nasa odom, let him make a mistake. Hainu, that means shemitzad hashalheves, from the perspective of that shalheves, yochel liyes mokim letoos shel pirut, there could become room. It allows for a mistake of separation. So b'shalheves atzmo, and the shalheves itself, the flame itself, meaning from the shalheves later on, they can deteriorate pirut, but the shalheves itself is shalheves yudke. That is a shalheves of yudke. That's pure. The mistakes will come later on, but the shalheves is still yudke. Shahayud, it's not only yud. We're saying yudke shayud yesh gam koitze shel yud. The yud also has the point of the yud. The yud itself represents the 10 spheres of Atzilus, and the point of the yud represents the Eser spheres hagnuzim b'Atzilus. So shayud yesh gam koitze shel yud hainu Eser spheres hagluyos, Eser spheres hagnuzis, the 10 revealed spheres and the 10 hidden spheres. Shneyem heim shalheves yudke. They're both shalheves yudke. They're connected. They're a flame of yudke. The shalheves itself. She'ein b'hem pirut chas v'shalom. There is no separation in that flame itself. There's no separation chas v'shalom. So ba'ava shebenefesh alikis nikras gamkin shalheves yudke. And the ava of the nefesh alikis is also called the shalheves of Yudke. Okay, let's leave it over here. It's getting late, and we'll mamshich over here tomorrow from over here. Okay?
Yeah. See you then. Bye.